Well, this day you have come to Iron Sharpens Iron to be encouraged and sharpened to live the life God designed you to live. Yes? And my hope and my goal is to give you a charge and a challenge to leave here with greater passion, purpose, and joy. Yes? Okay. So I want to tell you a little story. I heard a story about this female journalist who had an opportunity in her career to interview some of the world's most fascinating people. I mean, she'd done it all, from amazing artists and musicians, actors and actresses, heads of state, scientists, you name it. She had really met the most fascinating people. So one Saturday morning, you know those rare Saturdays, we don't get very many gals, where we lay in bed, halfway between asleep and dreaming and daydreaming. She had this little daydream, and she thought, well, if I could interview somebody that I've never gotten to interview, if I could just choose one last interview in my career, who would it be and what would I ask them? And she pondered for a bit, and she thought, I know, I'd interview God. And then for some reason, I don't know why she put a caveat on her own daydream, but she said, what if God only let me ask him one question? And she thought, I would ask God, what troubles you most about your creation, the human beings that you've created? And in her daydream, she thought he would answer something like this, that they rush to grow up, get bored with childhood, and then rush to grow up and then long to be children again. That they lose their health to make money and then lose their money to regain their health. Yeah, been there, done that, no. That by dwelling in the past and thinking anxiously about the future, they forget that life is lived in the present with a heavenly hope for the future. That despite the fact I've told them they can have an abundant life in me, they live as if they will never die and die as if they have never lived. Well, that's not living with passion, power, and purpose, and we're not going to live that way, are we? So what I want to do today is give you that charge, but sometimes what I find is we leave a wonderful time where we're connected and sharpened and encouraged, and we go back to the real life. And we start to look at things and we're thinking, this isn't what I signed up for. This is not how I planned my life. And we want to scream, what happened to my life? And we can sometimes get in that negative attitude, and instead of being thankful and full of gratitude, we're grousing about what we don't have. And we feel like maybe putting some of these negativity bumper stickers on our cars. You've seen them. And you know these women that have them on their cars, they're not living a life of passion, purpose, and joy. Like the one that says, eat well, stay fit, die anyway. That's not a passionate, purposeful life. Or this one, you know, I'm from California, and our freeways are crazy. So we see this one sometimes, and I don't think this is a woman with purpose, passion, and joy, but it says, God must love stupid people. He made so many of them. I know, we don't want to have that kind of attitude. And then lastly, one that is playing out well for me today, being on West Coast time with 4 hours sleep, but also I have to blame menopause or something. But this bumper sticker, ever stop to think and forget to start again? If you notice me doing that this afternoon, I'm okay. It just takes a moment for those neuron pathways to fire. I'll be right back at it in a second. Well, I want to ask you a question. I ask this often, but I really am serious. I want you to answer it in the privacy of your own mind. If you were to rate yourself today, your life, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 1 being absolutely miserable and 10 being absolutely perfect, how would you rate your life today? And under that, how would you rate yourself maybe over the last 3 months? Again, on a scale from miserable 1 to perfect 10. Do you fall maybe in the category right now, life is tough? This whole eastern seaboard hit with Hurricane Sandy, so many things going on, and it's a struggle. It's a 2, a 3, a 4. Are you newly in love, you know, in that gaga love phase where you just can't even think about anything and you're just like a syrupy, sweet 9, 10, your friends don't even want to be with you? Or do you fall in that 4, 5, 6, I call it mediocre complacency? Life is not bad. Life is not good. Life is just life. And I want you to ask yourself, really do, pick a number in your mind and then ask yourself why. Why do I rate myself this? And I think sometimes we can lose our passion, purpose, and joy because we base our rating of our life. We don't go around giving ourselves numbers, but we, in essence, are constantly processing that. And sometimes it's because we base our joy, our passion, and our purpose on our immediate circumstances. Now, I have had some interesting circumstances in my life, and some of them are far more fun than others. And you would think that perhaps we would have a really, really amazing life if we could just go anywhere. Just imagine, if you could live anywhere, where would you live? Anywhere. Well, this is where God let me go. That's Lugano, Switzerland. It's on the northern Italian border. It is the Italian part of Switzerland. The language, the culture, everything's Italian. Therefore, I call it Switzerland. And I am the queen of Switzerland because I made it up. And my husband took a job there about 6 years ago, and we lived there for 2 years. And my circumstances were great. In fact, he blessed us so much, I don't want you to hate me, but I was suffering for Jesus. That was my front yard. I know. If I were to rate my life based on those circumstances, hey, life's a 10. And then every time I flew back and forth from San Diego to the States, which was 14 times in 2 years, people go, where do you live? And I go, I live in Lugano, Switzerland. And then I'd say, oh, you know Lake Como, Italy? And everybody knows Lake Como because there's a guy that lives there everybody knows. His name is... Yeah, George. People would ask me all the time, have you seen George Clooney? I'm like, are you kidding? Now, I don't know. Californians get asked Southern Californians get asked these questions, but I'm living in Switzerland. Okay, I'm 20 minutes from Lake Como. So I answer them, of course, no, I have not seen George Clooney. However, about a year into living there, I went to a restaurant, and lo and behold, I'm sitting there having this nice, quiet dinner with 2 girlfriends, and in walks a small group, and I thought, gosh, that man in that group, if he weren't so short and so skinny, that could be George Clooney. He sat down, seriously, right about where you are from me, this close. By George, it was George. I've seen George Clooney, that's a 10, right? Well, then George, some of you think it's a 10. Who thinks it's a 10? I'd rather have, than a GC sighting, I'd rather have a JC sighting. But let me finish my story. So George, who would have known he has some talents? He's sitting at his table, and he's putting a spoon on his nose, and he's letting go. And, he's just right there. I'm seeing him. George, what's up? But then he does it again. He puts it on his nose. He lets go. I can't let go. And he gives me this huge smile. And I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do, clap? And then it occurred to me, I've been spooned by George Clooney. Now, if you want to rate your life on circumstances, go for it. But, as I said, I'd much rather have a JC sighting. So often we can get that discouragement. But this is what I believe, ladies, and I believe it, and it's so funny. This morning, Ruth was talking about the storms of life and how God had woken her up and changed her message. And we both have some similarity to where God is leading us. I'm just wrapping it in a different package today. But one of the things that I really believe is that if you have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, you can rate your life most days, an 8, 9, or a 10, despite your circumstances. And when the storms of life come in, whether they're literal or emotional or relational or whatever they are, you can find yourself within the eye of the storm of life. And even though it may not be your first choice, and it's not a trial you really would choose to go through, you can find yourself in peace and go, I know it's good. You know that old hymn, "It is well with the Lord"? It's just knowing you're okay, that you're in his arms. Well, sometimes we do get distracted because we women have so many things on our plates. I think women are amazing. I was talking to one of the gals after my workshop and talking about the burdens that we carry and how so often I think God gives us the extra burden because we're able. And we juggle so many balls in life. I look at our life and all the things that we're trying to keep spinning and trying to keep going, and some of the things in our life are like this rubber ball. They're the tyranny of the urgent. They're the everyday, got to do dishes, got to pay bills, got to go to work, got to do laundry, got to pick up the cleaning, and, so many things. I have a 16-year-old, so it's got to do laundry, got to do laundry, got to do laundry, and those rubber balls are bouncing, bouncing, bouncing in your face all the time. And the thing is, unfortunately, there are things that, yes, they have to be done every day, but nothing's going to happen if they don't happen usually. And yet they get in the way of the more important balls of life I call the glass balls of life. The glass balls of life represent to me a couple areas. Your body. I used to think mine was rubber. I'm 60. You get wrinkles on your knees and things fall. That's why we wear stretch pants. Your body. Your mind. And I don't mean that you're losing your memory. I mean what we put in is much more fragile. And your relationships. Because the rubber balls are bouncing so much and we have to choose which ones to drop. And sometimes just let things go. If we don't, these glass balls of life get neglected, and they get sometimes scratched and nicked and cracked. And if we neglect them too much because of the rubber balls, we drop them one time too many, they can shatter. I shared earlier in my workshop how I almost shattered the glass ball of my body as a young woman struggling with bulimia for so many years. There's one more really important ball I'll share with you in just a moment, far more important than the other two, that we can get distracted. Here's my premise to you today. I believe with all my heart that you can live a life filled with passion, purpose, and joy most days, one that honors God and blesses others, if, there's the one, there's the big word, if you make 3 powerful choices each day. 3 powerful choices. You want to know choice number 1? Okay, here it comes. Choice number 1, choose to look forward and stop looking back. As that little story about the journalist said, we can get so stuck, so anxious about the future, and so frustrated with the past, we can get stuck in regret, stuck in shame. And trust me, I've had a few regrets. I'm pretty transparent about them, and I thought, how can I possibly tell just a little bit of my story? I think, a story that took 60 years, how can I do it short? So I wrote a little poem, because I wanted to give you my story in less than 3 minutes. You ready? California, born in 1952. Yep, do the math. I'm 60, I'm not blue. Awesome family, my dad and mom, married 63 years. They're the bomb. Like most teen girls who look in a mirror, being fat and ugly was my biggest fear. Diet, pills, I was in a downward spiral. And then my bulimia went viral. Binging and purging, sometimes 5 times a day, my body was ravaged in numerous ways. Hid my secret for 16 years until panic attacks exposed all my fears. Losing my mind was really a drag. My fear of death felt like the plague. Hopeless, I searched for God with all of my heart. He revealed himself fully and gave my life a new start. I learned the freedom of a renewed mind. My panic was gone, my faith sublime. But my husband wanted a trophy wife, and discontentment began to consume my life. 2 little girls hurt in our ugly split. Where does a Christian divorcee fit? Stuck in the mire of guilt and shame, I was a pawn on the board of Satan's game. Failure at marriage, failure at life. No good as a mother, no good as a wife. An officer and gentleman saved the day. God's grace showed up in a lovely way. My new husband, lover, soulmate, and friend, we vowed to be faithful until the end. Our blended family was a challenging mix. My daughter's rebellious, no easy fix. A few good years of family calm, the quiet